Aloha and welcome to an unusual episode of Wanderous. If you could only see me right now, I'm like all bundled up. I'm bundled up. I'm like wrapped in a big comforter here because I'm in Rishikesh and it's chilly and there's no heating in this hotel room. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's talk about the Eiffel Tower. Welcome to Wanderous. First of all, I want to apologize for any background sound. I obviously don't have that much control over this environment. I'm going to do my best. As usual, all of this will be through a compressor and a limiter and all that fancy sound stuff, but there's only so much you can do with processing, so please excuse if there's any distracting background things. If there's something incredibly heinous, I will attempt to re-record that part, but I'm just putting a bit of a disclaimer up in front here. I'm traveling again and making this show as I travel, and I'm in Rishikesh, India, and we're at the part of my adventure, if you've been listening for a while, where I'm still in Paris, and I think I've been teasing this for a few weeks. I finally go up to the Eiffel Tower. Now, because all of my video is finally on a pretty fast SSD, I was able to review pretty much all the video I shot that day at the Eiffel Tower. I got quite a bit. And what struck me was how happy and excited I was to go up. I forgot how goofy the whole day had kind of made, goofy in a good way. I was very excited about it. So, I think we'll start with, there's a little travel tip that I'm going to share with you. And that is, you can actually save some money. At the time, it was about almost 30 euros to take both elevators to the summit of the Eiffel Tower. But if you want to save a little money and get a little exercise, you can actually do most of that via the stairwell. And, there's a little bit of a mountain climber inside of me, as you'll find out later on. And I was like, I'm here. Why not? Why not do some stairwell work? Well, first of all, the average person takes about 10 minutes to go up these steps. And I did it in under 4. And it's 328 steps. So if you're not prepared to go up 328 steps, maybe don't do it. Another tip, and I should have said this earlier, you're going to get there and they're not going to let you in if it's a semi-busy day. There is a limit to how many people can even be on the first floor. The Eiffel Tower is divided up into 3 main sections: the first floor, the second floor, and the summit. The only way to get to the summit is to take the elevator. But you can get to the first and second floors entirely through the stairwell. So this is what it sounds like when you go through, then the light finally comes on, when the sign says, "Oh, you can use your ticket now." This is what it sounds like. I've been waiting for like 20 minutes. And they go and you show your ticket. How does it work? What do I do? I'll see it. I'm excited. And it just beeps. And then, of course, there will be people standing right in front of the stairwell because human beings apparently love to stand right in the middle of a major traffic area. Don't worry, that's normal on Earth. It wouldn't be Earth if there wasn't somebody just standing right in the middle of the road. I spent a little under 4 minutes scaling this internal skeleton of metal and machine moving around me. It felt a little bit like a video game for a minute there. And then I reached the first level, which is pretty cool on its own. There are interactive displays, which I would run into later in that adventure. There's also little exhibitions of art, and I came across these levels of things that would pop up, and it would show different stages of the tower's construction. There's a little French cuisine restaurant, which I didn't go into because I wasn't hungry at the time. I was going there right after, it was a couple minutes after sunset. I was running a little behind. But you know what? It didn't matter. You'll probably remember that it was August, So the sun set pretty slowly. It was the middle of the summer, so I had some flexibility with the lighting, and I was greeted. And I have a bit, I can try to find this bit. I have a bit where I'm just like, this is like fairy light. It was a pinkish light, orange or pinkish light covering the whole city. It was very pretty, really pretty photos from the first and second and summit that I will be sharing with Patreon supporters. You can always find those bonuses at patreon.com/HelloCrusoe, hello, CRUSOE. And that's for people that support the show monetarily, because this show does take time to record and it does take time to edit. It takes time and energy. And I really appreciate the people who have supported this show. And indeed, there are people who have supported my work over there for over 7 years now. You know who you are. Mahalo nui loa. That's Hawaiian for thank you very much. So yeah, it really is striking, especially reviewing these photos, how beautiful Paris is at night. It really is, you know. And when I reached the second level, it just got better and better and better. It really did. There was a building, I think it was toward the south, that was, I thought it was a ghost building because there was just this outline of purple, and I thought I was seeing right through it. It turns out it was mostly glass, and because of my funny perspective of my elevation at the time in the Eiffel Tower, the angle was such that it looked like it was translucent. It's so funny. So funny things can happen when you're at specific altitudes. Of course, I had my picture taken. Maybe I'll put that in. Had people take my picture. It would have been nice if my couchsurfing host had time to go with me, but he was busy. He was working. So I was once again on my own. But it ended up being great because I just got to go entirely at my own pace and take so many photos and take so much video. You know, there's a bridge. It's like a red bridge. And there's like a blue bridge you could see going over the Seine River. It's just electric. The whole thing is literally electric. You can also get champagne or caviar. A cup of champagne is either 17 or 20, but still. I have photos of this, what looked like a ghost building. I'll include that too in the bonuses. Every Wednesday, people who support the show get the best photos from any given episode, any given experience. And it's a great way to support the show. And you can find out more about that at patreon.com, like I said. So I explored the first and second floors for a while. I was really enjoying myself. And of course, they had a little gift shop, and I was tempted to get overpriced trinkets. It was kind of getting a bit late, and I felt that it was finally time to get in line for the one elevator that I was going to enjoy that night. And I get into this elevator, and it's like, you know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you've ever played a pretty famous at the time game called Myst, M-Y-S-T. Going in that elevator vaguely reminded me of the Myst elevator, because you're just going and going and going, and you're in this dark matrix of metal. You can maybe hear a bit of it. So they get out of the way, we're closing the door. Everything's all clear, still not moving yet. They really take safety seriously, as they should. But the elevator itself is pretty quiet. So you mostly hear people's voices. Zoop, zoop, zoop. There you go. And you empty out when you reach the summit. You get into this sort of observation area with windows, which isn't my favorite part. Although they do have these, they have a diorama or diagrams above that talk about the history. They also compare the tallest buildings on the planet, so you can learn quite a bit. And then you head up these steps, just one flight of steps, and then you're really in the summit, which is a metal cage, of course. But you could stick your hand out, which is pretty wild. You're out there, So they have a quote, they have a limit to the amount of people that can be up there at any given time, which is why you have to wait to go in at the entrance at the bottom. And the sun is there's still some light in the sky. It's twilight, definitely. And the spotlight that I saw a few days before is slowly scanning the horizon, doing its 360 around Paris. And this is the moment, this is my first view, seeing Arc de Triomphe pretty clearly. Apparently, according to their website, you can see 70 kilometers from the summit of the Eiffel Tower. It's about 50 miles for the Americans listening. That's pretty cool. And all of the streets were these orange veins. They were lit so orange. They were like veins of a body flowing with traffic below me. And they had this scale that showed, you're at 281 meters. That's where that floor rests, is at 281 meters. But what was more, at the absolute top of the building is 324. But that's where the lightning rod is, and where the TV antenna is, which apparently sort of saved the tower a couple times, because not everybody liked the Eiffel Tower when it was completed. A lot of Parisians thought it was tacky, among other things. But it was useful as an antenna. I'll need to dive into that experience a little bit more. I'm just giving you, as I do on this show, I'm giving you the feeling and the energy of what it's like to be up there. And it was just so jubilant. It really was a jubilant place to be. And one of the most interesting surprises that you'll find when you go up there, Gustave Eiffel, the designer of the tower, actually had an office up there. He had an office and a little meeting room. And there was a famous scene depicted. This office has now been transformed into somewhat of a museum. You can't really go, it's more of a museum you look into through the windows. And you can see recreation of a historical event where Gustave Eiffel hosted Thomas Edison. And they talked about his phonograph, apparently. And it's they've got a plaque and everything's very official, and it was quite a sight to see these famous characters rendered pretty accurately as basically like wax figures. So not only are you in one of the most famous buildings in the world, but you learn a little history along the way as well. So I was up there for a little while, just enjoying the twilight, getting darker and darker. And I thought, I gotta call my parents, because when you go up there, you want to share it, right? And I noticed, hey, wait, other people are making video calls, they're making FaceTime calls. Let's see if I have enough signal with my UK SIM card that was a kind of a universal EU and SIM card for the EU and for the UK, and it worked. And I was able to call them. It wasn't it wasn't full quality, but I was able to say hi to everybody, back in America, and they were like, "That's really cool." So don't forget to do that. Don't forget to think about the people back at home when you go to these places. It really does mean a lot. There will be, in a future episode, an interesting, I think, rather amusing story about a mountain in Japan where I try to make a phone call from. The view obviously was wild, and one of the second fun surprises, or maybe this is the third surprise now, was I'm up there and I'm just enjoying it, and I'm like, it's open pretty late. It's open until I think midnight, depending on the season, and all of a sudden, the whole building starts flashing, and I'm looking around. And I realized, wait a minute, I've seen this from the ground. The whole building is doing, it's the top of the hour. It must be 10 o'clock. So I got to be right next to these like crazy bright strobes as they were going off. And it was like being inside of a disco ball a little bit. I think the effect is more impressive from the outside. It's more impressive from the ground, to be clear. But it was pretty cool. And I have some video footage of that. I don't know if If I have a good video of that, I will find it and link it on YouTube and maybe TikTok for people in places that can use TikTok. Of course, before I left the summit, I went through and took pictures of all the very consumerist, materialistic, hilarious souvenirs. And I also saw some macarons, which are, if you don't know what a macaron is, I will include some pictures of very, very attractive macarons. It's sort of like a French cookie. Unfortunately, I couldn't have them because they all had dairy and I'm lactose intolerant. So play the sad trombone there. They were also €2.50 per cookie. So when you're in a famous structure, a landmark, you are going to pay a premium, of course. One of the great things about lingering, if you have the time to linger in the Eiffel Tower, is that you'll get the opportunity to shoot pictures of areas with no people. And I got some I think these are rather haunting images of the sort of the works and the substructure and some of these halls with no people. There were a few areas where there just weren't that many people. As I said in previous episodes, August is the month where the Parisians typically get the heck out of town. I noticed a lot of interesting, strange details. Like there were ropes, they were sort of tied up and they were tied on things. And I think that they were left over from when that area had been painted or something like that. I really wasn't sure. Huge flywheels from the many elevators. Only 3 of the elevators were running at the time. The north elevator had been shut down for renovations. There was a whole explanation about that. But yeah, it was a really magical experience being up there. And at the time, if you normally, like I said, it's 30-ish. I paid about 20 or 22 euros because I didn't use one of the elevators, because I think I probably something like 500 steps. But there was such a sense of accomplishment. If you consider yourself interested in doing that at all, if you consider yourself rather in shape, I recommend it. I think that it's a much better feeling to actually walk up to the second floor of the Eiffel Tower. You really feel like you've earned it in a different way. Obviously, if you have any health conditions, if you don't feel like you're up for that, it's totally fine. Everybody's different. But if you feel like you're up for it, go for it. That's all I got to say. Go for it. So yeah, would I go back to Eiffel Tower? I don't know if I would do it alone. I think I would do it if I was with somebody who really wanted to explore that, wanted to share that with. I think it'd be a beautiful experience to share with someone special. And then you can even make fun of the large pastry sculptures that I came across as well. I'm going to put this in the bonuses for Wednesday. This is pretty amusing. It's just like a massive cacao bean, and it's just like there's a tower. The Eiffel Tower is surrounded by cacao beans. The French do love their chocolate. That's for sure. And yeah, it was just a really sweet experience. People were in a good mood, obviously, and there were, you learn history along the way. And it's very heady, it's at that altitude, people are just, we're a little freaked out, even though it's a metal cage. You're just in a slightly altered state of mind, completely legally. So if you have any questions about the Eiffel Tower, please feel free to leave them in the comments, in the Spotify comments or over on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/HelloCrusoe. And you too can enjoy this 330 meter or 327 meter, depending on who you ask, tall structure, which when it was completed, and I think I mentioned this in the last episode, it was the tallest building in the world. It was the first building over 300 meters. It was a really big deal until the Chrysler building was completed in New York. It was the tallest game in town. And by town, I mean planet Earth. So I guess that's what happens when you get roped into a World's Fair. But yeah, make sure you set aside, I would honestly set aside, just so you can goof around, at least 2 hours. I was up there I was in that building for an ungodly amount of time. I think I was there until midnight because I was just talking to people like I do. I think I was there for like almost 4 hours because I'm an architecture nerd, and I was just amazed at the weight distribution. And, it sounds like such a silly thing to say, but it's huge. You really don't realize how huge the Eiffel Tower is. It takes up a couple blocks at the base. What I would consider standard blocks of a city. It's really quite impressive, even though you might think, oh, it's cliche, or it goes, da, 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 da. But, there's a reason why the Eiffel Tower is the most popular paid attraction in the world in terms of raw numbers of people that pay to go into a thing. When I last checked, it was at the top of that list. So many people visit because it is inspiring. I could even see the Statue of Liberty, the little baby one that was a gift. I believe it was a gift from America, in the middle of the river on the bridge going across the Seine River. It was easily visible. The amount of landmarks you can see, Montmartre, Arc de Triomphe. There's even a cute Ferris, like a carousel that you can see, and it's from below, and it's just, I don't know. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. But I would say 2 thumbs up, even if you are reticent to go to a place that seems very touristy. It's all about how you think about these things. Yes, it is a tourist hotspot, but this was a statement. This was an engineering and architectural statement of really engineering superiority of France at the time. And to visit that statement, to go inside of that statement, and to really feel the energy of that, and the attention to detail, the just truly monumental engineering that went into this building is humbling. You will be humbled in a good way. So anyway, thanks for listening. And if you want to see some amazing photos and I think these are photos that a lot of people really haven't. I mean, they're just not as weird as me. I just get perspectives that people don't think of. You can go to patreon.com/HELLOCRUSOE. And you can even just jump on there and support me for just 1 month if you want, because you can cancel at any time. But you get access to 4 now, complete audiobooks that I've narrated, tropical sci-fi, including the commentary edition of my first tropical sci-fi book, and the nonfiction about how Hawaii changed my life called 10,000 Hours in Paradise. That's all on Patreon, and it's frankly cheaper than doing something like Audible or buying the audiobooks on Google, or Apple or anywhere, because it's a subscription thing, and subscription things are great. So anyway, I want to thank everybody again who supports this show. Even if it just means you follow me on Spotify, it's good to follow me on Spotify so you don't lose or miss any episodes. And if you don't like Spotify, you can also find me on Apple Podcasts now. You can find me on Stitcher and Overcast, and Amazon Music has this podcast now. So please follow it. It really helps the show grow and continue to evolve and get better and better. So thank you so much. It's cold here in Rishikesh. Thanks for listening. I'm glad that I was able to do this tonight. I wasn't sure if I could, to be honest. It's not my normal setup, but we made it happen. Mahalo.